Howdy, folks. What's going on? This is the Outlaw Hatfield back at you one more time. Of course, with me tonight, as always, on my Saturday nights, I've got Mr. Rich White. How are you, Mr. Rich?
Not too bad.
I was informing Rich before we came on air that I really haven't kept up with any of the news over the last week. So, what's going on in the wrestling world tonight or the last week, I have no clue about. Any of that information will have to come from Rich himself, who is quickly becoming the guru of modern wrestling for us.
Well,
So,
yeah, but let's see. During the introductions for Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks on Dynamite this week, Kenny Omega comes out by himself after Don Callis says that the three of them don't have to enter together, that Kenny can come out first and then the Young Bucks. And Josh Roberts is getting ready to introduce the Young Bucks. Callis jumps in the ring, grabs the mic from him, says that we need a real professional to do this, keeps hinting that he's going to introduce the Young Bucks, and instead he introduces Gallows and Anderson.
wow.
hmm And you see Matt and Nick backstage all pissed off, but they don't do anything. They just walk off. And it turns into Kenny Omega and Gallows and Anderson versus the three basically nobodies that they were going to be fighting. I don't even remember who it was. I think it was Pillman Jr., Biff Garrison, and the third guy who I can't remember right now. So that happened. And then you had the main event, which was Darby Allin defending the TNT title versus Brian Cage, which ended with the most dangerous move in professional wrestling, and Darby Allin retains.
What's the most dangerous? What is the most dangerous move in professional wrestling?
Any variation of a roll up.
Any what now?
Any variation of a roll up.
Oh. I remember when the most dangerous move in professional wrestling was considered the pile driver. You remember that?
Oh yeah, some people still is.
And then it was the diving headbutt, and that one I can honestly see.
Yeah, but it's a joke that the most dangerous move in professional wrestling right now is the roll up, because every time you turn around, somebody lately is winning with a roll up of some form or another. In this case, it was a crucifix pin, which is basically just a type of roll up.
Yeah, small package.
Yeah, here's the thing about that. I have seen Brian Cage roll through one of those, grab the guy, stand straight up. You know what the crucifix is? It's where you grab the guy with one. Yeah. I've seen Brian Cage get into that. Somebody put Brian Cage in that, and he just rolls through it, picks him up on his shoulders, and then basically does an F5 on him. I have seen him do this in other matches, but little skinny Darby Allin somehow was able to hold him down for a 3 count with that move.
Looks like
I find it believable is an understatement.
Yeah, it looks like we've already got a couple out there. We got 2 live moves out there, and we have Squib. I have not seen Squib in a minute.
Yeah, there were commenters on YouTube saying, "Oh, this was the match of the year so far." It's like, I don't think so.
No,
they were setting that up where Darby was going to get the holy hell beat out of him the whole match. I mean, he already was. This was a fluke win. It didn't do anything for anybody. It just made Cage look like a chump. I didn't care for the ending of the match in one little bit. If they were going to do anything with this match, the way Cage was throwing Allin around the entire match, he should have walked away with the belt.
Yeah. Darby Allin, I have seen him a few times. He doesn't look like he is very big at all. I mean, he's what?
170. He's about
exactly.
Yeah, Brian Cage legitimately had over 100 pounds on him.
Sheesh.
And Brian Cage looks like he could play the Incredible Hulk if he was green.
Yeah, well, no, I don't understand it. Back, if you remember back 15, 20 years ago, the guys that were breaking into wrestling for the most part were not little guys like that. These guys were 260, 270, 80, 90, 300 pounds. And now it seems like the guys that's been coming in over the last 10 years or so have been, 5'11" and, barely going 220.
Here's the thing with that. The other promotions all have different weight divisions. AEW doesn't have the different weight divisions. If Darby Allin were wrestling in Japan, or if he were wrestling in NXT or WWE, he would be in the junior heavyweight or cruiserweight divisions. He wouldn't be in the heavyweight division. He wouldn't be TNT champion right now.
So, do they actually have a TNT World Champion or just a TNT Champion?
The TNT champion is basically their version of the television championship.
Okay. So, who's wearing the big gold in AEW right now? Moxley?
Omega.
Oh, okay.
And the Bucks have the tag team titles.
Okay, so we have a basically a television title, world title, and a tag team championship.
Right.
Is there anything that in between that television and world title?
Currently, no.
Okay. Because
rumors that they may bring out another title, but they haven't done so yet, and you know how rumors are.
Yeah.
The only other title is the women's title, and the NWA women's title gets defended on AEW a lot as well.
Mystic Guns is out there, and if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn I seen Kingpin. Yep. Kingpin, would you like a link to the show, sir? But anything else exciting? What's going on with Sting? That's what I want to know. What's going on with Sting these days?
Same thing. After the match, they're getting ready to do the beatdown on Darby, and out comes Sting to save his butt.
That's
actually Sting came out and saved his butt during the match because Ricky Starks was going to get involved. Sting comes out, beats Starks with the baseball bat, and about that time is when Cage gets rolled up for the fluke win.
I don't know. So let me ask you. Like I said, you keep up with the new stuff a lot better than I do. Gary's out there. How you doing, Gary? What new up and comer guys have you heard anything about that may actually be something?
Well, you got MJF and AEW, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. He's a Chris Jericho in waiting. He's got that same kind of vibe as Jericho does.
Okay.
And right now he is in the inner circle with Jericho. Another guy is Sammy Guevara. Another guy that's in the inner circle with Jericho. He's a young guy he's another one of those ones that's got Eddie Guerrero vibe to him.
Well, that is actually kind of cool, man. Tell you what I'm going to do. I just seen a name pop in that I'm going to send a link to because I'd love to have him in here. I've seen a thing on I think it was Instagram with Ric Flair in a hospital, and I was like, "What the hell's going on here? Have you heard anything about that?"
I have not.
I don't know. Maybe it was an older happening, but I seen that. I was like, "Well, I'll have to ask Rich about that because if anybody would know what's going on with Flair, he would."
Yeah, he
But
was just on Raw this past week, so I don't know anything about him being in the hospital. Oh, and speaking of Flair, have you seen the picture that is going around that is a mashup of Ric Flair and Sarge?
no. Yes, 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 yes. I did see that. I did see that. Ric Flair turns around and has got Sarge's mustache.
It's Sarge's face with Flair's hair.
Yeah, and he does the Flair flop. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I thought that was great. C4, I just sent you a link to this chat if you would like to jump in.
Yeah. There's another one where it's Flair doing one of his promos on the old TBS set right there where they did the color commentary, and it's Sarge's face on Flair's body.
Hmm. So Sarge is getting Flair famous.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Well, you know. Um, speaking of Flair, I got to watching some old matches. I guess after we got off the air last week, and I found a match, and I guess it was Memphis with Ric Flair versus Jerry Lawler on television, no less. And I was like, wow, I didn't know this existed. And it was a pretty damn good match. Of course, once Jerry started getting the upper hand on Rick reverts back to being the nature boy,
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a bad match. Um, the way they set it up was, of course, Flair, the NWA World Champion, we go to promotion to promotion. He showed up in Memphis and was supposed to wrestle some nobody, and the King comes out and says, "Hey, look, we know you can beat this guy. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that Ric Flair is going to beat whoever they decided to put you in the ring with. So instead of boring these fans, why don't you get in the ring with me?"
Yeah. Oh, Midnight just sent me a link to that, or sent me an email with that picture in it with Sarge as Ric Flair. So let me put my screen up there if you would, sir.
Okay, let's
And then
see
I'll
here.
show you this. And then I'll show you the picture.
I'm thinking it's that one.
Yep, it's that one. All right. There we go. You see that?
Yeah, indeed. Look at that.
That is definitely the old TBS set.
That is definitely the old NWA set. Wow. Now
You know
I wonder who the individual is that come up with that, who perpetrated that fallacy.
Oh, there's been a lot of it going around lately. People doing
Yeah.
things with Snob and putting him into different movies and stuff, and all kinds of good stuff.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, that's all fine and wonderful.
Oh,
I,
crap. I forgot this. Midnight's yelling out there. I forgot to scroll up, so I got to go back here and screen share this again. All right, give me a second there, Midnight.
yeah, you don't want the fry cook to get upset.
Now, so now you got to show my screen again.
Yeah, hold on. Do, do, do. There you go.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Can
Take
you
the
read?
game for on apple. Eating son of a gun. Wee. Hey, Sarge, I think they pegged you, Bubba.
Oh, Sarge saw it last night, I think.
They just left out your donuts.
No, the donut's right there, the apple fritter.
Yeah, but a fritter's not a donut, dude. It's two different things.
I don't know. Sarge goes to that donut stores and he gets apple fritters. I mean, the evidence is on tape, So
Yeah, well, I know that, but still, the Sarge needs a real donut. I'm thinking a plain glazed donut for the Sarge.
Mm-hmm.
Ellis Squib 1911 gmail.com. I'm thinking it Squib would like a link.
Yeah, I think. I don't know how much Squid knows about the subject, but apparently he wants in.
Hey. And you know what? I have absolutely zero qualms about sending him a link. Well, you know what? Fuck it. Excuse my French. We're going to do this. You know what I'm about to do, don't you?
You're going to throw it out there in the chat.
Would I do a thing like that?
Yes. Nobody learns from Alan B. Pro's mistakes around here. Come on.
Hey. The difference is I'm not ashamed to use the boot hammer. So, and besides, there's enough mods out there. If anybody gets a little crazy, we can deal with it. That's the only thing I really don't like about StreamYard. It don't show you who your mods are. Add to stream, Mr. Squib.
You know, I thought that was kind of classy that you just threw it out there in the chat. You know, especially when you prefaced it with "fuck it." Now that shows some real balls. I'm not, you know, trying to patronize you or nothing. I'm just calling you out for, you know, manning up. So for those of us out there that still have some values, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. No, I'll simply look at it like this. If anybody shows up in here that I don't want in here, I can kick them out. you know?
Now, Sarge says if Squib doesn't say Flair is the GOAT, immediately kick him out.
Okay, so my Ric Flair story is that I was watching a rail fanning video. And for those of you who don't know what that is, Google it. And there's a guy in the background that keeps going, woo! So I had to make the comment to the creator of the video. Did you have Ric Flair in the background? But that's about all the Ric Flair I got.
So, like, Squib, what do you know about pro wrestling? What do you know about the greatest sport of all time?
Let's see. In 1987, when everybody else in the class went to Cedar Point for the class trip, I sat with like 4 other kids in a classroom and watched WrestleMania 4 on VHS. Piper was awesome and They Live. And The Rock appeared in Star Trek The Next Generation or Voyager. Other than that,
Voyager.
no, I don't know jack crap about wrestling. Hulk Hogan's real name is Terry. I mean, I don't know nothing. I just really wanted to just pop in to say hi. That was all. I'll leave so that you can like have a real show. But I appreciate the fact that you had the courage to put the link out there. If more people who did live shows did that, I think they'd find that they wouldn't have so much of an echo chamber.
You know what? Here's the thing, man. I look at it like this. If you got to be man enough to say, okay, I can put it out there and deal with whatever shows up. So, and like I said, I've got enough people out there right now who are mods that if anybody shows up in the chat that needs taken care of, they can take care of that. They show up in this live feed. It's an easy enough problem to deal with. So,
well, now I put myself on a spot because whenever, I don't know when it is, but whenever I start doing my live show, somebody's going to be like, well, Ellis gave you a link, gave everybody a link, so you got to give it. So I've pretty much burned myself. But no, I just kind of, I'm rarely able, well, actually, I've never even listened in on a Saturday. I just don't have the schedule for it, but this Saturday I did. So I just figured, you know, like you said, fuck it. I'll just jump in. So I appreciate the link, and I'm going to get out of here and just go back to listening. And I don't know if you guys want to explain anything from the standpoint of somebody who maybe doesn't have as much experience listening in, it would be appreciated. But otherwise, it's your show.
Hey, well, we appreciate you stopping in. It's been a long time since you and I shared a word, Squib.
Yeah, I know. We were like at Palmetto State, just in opposite years.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep. Me and Squib. For those of you folks that don't know, you can go several years back, back to Gun Channels, as a matter of fact. Um, him, and Gary, and Ghost, and Clover, myself. We all got started right there. Um, Sean McCoy, or Sean Connery, as some of you may know him. Um, this is how we all met. Uh, was the Gun Channels thing, and over time we developed quite close friendships. I consider Clover and Ghost and Gary and the rest of the guys from over there very dear friends. So, um, if you wanted to, Rich, define professional wrestling, how would you do so?
I think Vince McMahon defined it perfectly when he started calling it sports entertainment.
Yeah,
Because that's what it is. There is an athletic element to it, but it's not a true competition. It's done for entertainment.
yep,
You got your heroes, you got your villains. They try and tell a story between good and evil, and that's what you got.
yep. And the lines of that have blurred over the last several years. Because if you remember, back in the 70s and the 80s, you had guys who were known to be heels, and then you had guys who were known to be the baby faces. Every once in a while, a baby face would change sides, or a heel, but on a rate, look at Big Show, for crying out loud. That means change more sides than bacon being flipped.
Yeah.
So it's.
I think what you're going for is the fact that they introduced the character of the anti-hero that you see in comic books as well.
Yeah, and
You got like the Punisher character in Stone Cold Steve Austin, for example.
yeah. Um, and we've talked about it before. That's one of the things I think has been missing from modern professional wrestling for years. You don't have those dedicated heels and those dedicated faces. Guys that, yeah, sure, they could do both, but they're far better at being one than they are at being the other. And a prime example of that, for anybody that cares, is Ricky Steamboat. How many of you could look at Ricky Steamboat and ever think this man a heel?
Well, until WCW did it, how many people were going to ever think that after his WWF run that Hogan was going to be a heel?
Hogan started off as a heel, and
Yes.
a good one.
But very briefly, most people knew Hulk Hogan as a face from his WWE run or WWF. Yep. Very few people know that he was a heel in AEW. Because a lot of people didn't get AEW on TV. Their first exposure to Hogan was in the WWF ring.
I don't think you're talking about AEW.
AWA, excuse me.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah, I know what you meant, but they might not have.
Yeah. These names are too close together, man.
Yeah, exactly. But another one I like to pull out of my hat when it talk about this is Sting. Sting started off as a heel.
Yeah.
He wasn't very good at that role. Honestly, Sting was not a good heel. As soon as they moved him into WCW, and he, started doing the whole babyface thing,
Well, he was a babyface before he was moved to WCW.
Yeah,
he was
well,
a
he
babyface in
was.
UWF.
Yeah, he was, but he didn't really catch on until he got into the WCW. And when he did, he exploded, man.
Yeah, and like we've discussed before, it was the right spot at the right time because they need somebody to fill a spot because the person they were grooming was no longer able to wrestle.
Yep. And in the meantime, they had I think one title change between the time. Well, Dusty beat Flair. Dusty lost back to Flair. What, a year and a half later, Garvin beats Flair because Magnum couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Flair holds the title for what? Or Garvin holds the title for a month and a half.
Yeah.
Drops it back to Flair.
And then you have Nikita and, of all people, Ricky Morton.
Yep.
And Hawk feud with Flair in the interim. Those were the next three challengers for him before Sting came along.
Yep. And, Sting was big in WCW before 89, but something happened in 89. And when it happened, it changed everything. Well, that first Clash of the Champions, when Sting went 45 minutes draw Broadway, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, with Ric Flair on television. At that point in time in the history of wrestling, that was absolutely unheard of. One, the world champion does not go up against a big time opponent on television. That just didn't happen. Especially an opponent
that was Clash of Champions, which was one of the precursors to the pay-per-view era.
Yeah, exactly. And that was what was so big about it, because nobody thought Clash of Champions was going to take off like it did. I'm thinking Clash of Champions was supposed to be like a one and done deal.
No, they had that planned as a series.
I don't know, man.
No, Arn Anderson has talked about it. That was planned as a series. That was supposed to be a series. The first War Games was supposed to take place at one of the Clash of Champions events.
I wish it would have. That'd have been great. Was it at the Clash of Champions in Nashville? I think so. It was in '89, the fall of '89, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly, that was the only match that stood out to me anyway. I'm sure there was a lot of great matches, but the one I honestly remember watching was the Flair Sting match. It was just it was a good match. I don't know, I'm sure that Flair had to talk Sting through a lot of it because Sting was still young then. Sting was still learning.
Yeah.
But you couldn't tell it.
Yeah, the crazy thing is I watched Magnum TA and Ric Flair go 60 minutes in Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh when I was younger. That was Memorial Day weekend of, I want to say 85, and it was pouring down rain, cold out, and these guys were in. For those of you who don't know, Three River Stadium did not have a roof. So, I mean, those guys were getting poured on in the rain while doing their match. And they went 60 minutes in a Broadway. That was just insane. And that was a house show, essentially.
Do you recall when Ricky Steamboat lost the match to Flair to lose the world title? It was the third match, and it ended with Flair getting the win. He gets the title back. Jim Ross is in the ring interviewing Flair. Remember who comes into the ring after that?
No, that whole feud, I didn't have cable at the time, so there's a lot of that I didn't get to see.
Well, after that match, Terry Funk comes into the ring and he absolutely beats the snot out of Flair. Leaves Flair laying. And that set up the Flair Funk feud. That lasted a long time. And that was one of Flair's better feuds, in my opinion. And that's when Flair went quasi babyface there for a little while. I thought that was one of Flair's better feuds. His feud with Sting was great. His feud with Dusty was great. But there was just something about that feud he had with Terry Funk. It's almost like he took it to a new level for those. And maybe it was because he was playing the face role to Terry Funk's heel. I don't know. But man, those matches, they were good and they were brutal. I think Terry Funk's an overrated wrestler or an underrated wrestler. I always thought he was very good.
Yeah. I mean, the man was a world champion at one point. I mean, it's just him and his brother both.
Yeah.
Sarge says he ran into Ric Flair at a match when he was a kid. He means he literally ran into him. He opened a door right into him. What an idiot. He puts the what an idiot, not me. I mean, Sarge's words, not mine.
Sarge, did you have to receive a Ric Flair chop for that? You know, I've seen a lot of chops. Ric Flair had some of the best chops in the business. I don't think Flair's chops was nearly as brutal as Wahoo McDaniel's, though. Wahoo had a chop, man. Or Manny Fernandez. Manny Fernandez had a chop.
Big Show, too. Good Lord. The guy that size, and when he chops you, you know it. Big Show would leave guys. I've seen Big Show chop somebody, and their chest was just. You see the blood running down their chest from when he would bust their skin open. He hit them so hard.
Well, I remember a Flair Sting match where Sting left the ring and his chest was bleeding from all the chops he received.
Well, this would just be one chop, Bob.
Yeah, I know.
When we get the guy in the corner, you could tell whenever Paul White got mad at somebody because that's when the chops come out. If somebody did something to make him mad in the ring, he get you in the corner and he just haul off with one of those chops, and next thing you know, you had a cut going across your chest.
Yep, I understand. Now, if you could take a chop from anybody in the business, who would you not want to have that chop delivered by? If you could choose, other than Big Show, because we're not going to go there.
Well, there's another guy we're overlooking here. His name's Ming or Haku. Take your pick. That's another guy I would not want chopping.
He normally did an overhead thing though, an overhand chop.
You don't think it hurt?
Oh, probably, but you know,
that guy was nuts.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to make him mad. I wouldn't want to make him mad. He had a reputation for biting people's noses off, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And by the way, for those of you that's wondering, yes, that actually happened. He bit some dude's nose off.
Yeah. Andre the Giant and a couple other guys were witnesses to when it happened.
I would not ever want to be in a bar fight with him involved. That would be bad.
Yeah. The stories of Haku when he would get into a bar fight with people, Oh my God. He never started it. He's one of those guys, don't start the fight, but you finish it. If you got into a fight with him, he was finishing it.
Bruiser Brody had a chop. Now Sarge brought out
Oh,
one
yeah.
here.
Yeah, Brody.
Bruiser had a chop. And it was brutal. Ric Flair, if you could hear a Flair chop, you could hear a Brody chop.
Or you could hear a Big Show chop too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That sounds like a gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one guy I would hate to get chopped by would have been Ron Garvin, because they called him the man of hand and stone for a reason.
No, that's because he was a boxer. Before he got into pro wrestling, he was a boxer. That's how he got the nickname.
But if you ever watch one of his matches when he chopped somebody, that just looked like it sucked. I mean, that just looked like it was just plumb full of ouch. Now, who was one person you wouldn't want to get punched by?
Oh, good Lord. There's a few of them.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Marrow.
Yeah, well, Mark, of course, but again,
another boxer.
The boxer, yeah. Of course. I think the Undertaker's one I'd hate to get punched by, honestly.
Well, you got to remember, if you're talking Taker, you're talking wrestling punch. A wrestling punch is not the same as a boxing punch.
Well, yeah, exactly. Nowhere near. But he just looked like, well, in that same vein, I guess I could say Stan Hansen. I'd hate to get popped by that sucker, too. Good Lord.
Stan Hansen, the guy that popped Vader's eye out of socket with a clothesline.
Yeah. Yeah.
True story, folks.
And Vader just pops it right back in.
Mm-hmm. And continues the match.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you look hard enough on YouTube, you can actually find it. That actually happened.
Yep. A lot of weird stuff has happened in the world of pro wrestling, folks. Believe me. Everything from people being set on fire to bra and panty matches. It's happened.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio once killed a guy in the ring. Accidentally, of course, but it happened.
Really? I never knew that.
Oh, yeah. He hit the guy with the 619. Guy had an aneurysm or something after being hit. Dies in the ring. Nobody realizes he's dead. He does the drop a dime splash after it gets to 1, 2, 3, and the guy never moves.
Wow.
I think that happened in Mexico, if I remember right.
That's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
I saw George the Animal Steel dislocate someone's arm and continue the match. Well, back in the day, unless somebody was dying, the match went on. Unless somebody was dead or dying, the match kept going. Because it was all about keeping the business alive, making everybody think it was real.
If anything, they would rush the finish, but the match would keep going. And they still do that kind of thing. Unless it's a super serious injury, they don't stop the match. They'll rush to get to the finish. They'll cut time down, and they'll come to the finish quicker. Like when Neville, aka Pac, broke his ankle, and Jericho's letting the referee. Of course, the referee screwed up, but they still got to the finish quicker than what it was supposed to happen.
Yeah. Well, remember when Sid? Remember when Sid come off the ropes and broke his leg?
Yeah, that match stopped right then and there.
Yeah, that was hideous. And anybody, if you haven't seen that, there's video of it on YouTube. You got a guy that's 6'9", 6'10", 312 pounds, 320 pounds, coming off the top rope, breaking his leg as he hits the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, the mat. It wasn't even the ground. He was landing on the ring.
It was a mat.
He was in the ring.
Yeah. And you could that leg just folded, and it was just
Yeah.
sickening to look at.
Yeah. MKJO says his leg buckled. No, his leg didn't buckle. His leg his shin bone folded.
Yeah. And so he was wrestling Scott Steiner at the time, and Scott, thank God, had this common sense just say, okay, I'm covered right now. This is over.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't let it go on another 20 minutes. He just went ahead, covered him. 1, 2, 3. It was over, and they got him out of the ring and some medical attention. That was one of the most gruesome injuries I had ever seen in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting back to the chop thing, Sarge brings up Ole Anderson. He would whack the man, and yeah, Ole, especially if Ole was getting mad, if you screwed up in the ring, oh boy, were you in for a beating.
Mm-hmm.
Ole was old school, and he would tear you a new one.
Yep.
And Arn was telling a story where they were doing a house show somewhere, and Ole just lost it so much. Arn literally and Rick had to grab him and pull him off the guy. There's just some jobber who accidentally got too close and kicked him in the nose, bloodied his nose, and Ole just lost it. He exploded on the guy.
Well, you hear a lot of stories like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he brings up Harley Race too. Yeah, there's another one.
Yeah. Harley Race was notorious for just going crazy with guys. I heard Ric Flair tell a story one time about Harley Race and something that went on between them. And, Harley apparently didn't play too many games. He was straight up, let's do what we got to do. Let's get this done. Let's do it right and go home. But if you screwed it up, you're going to pay. You hear people talk about receipts. Well, back in the day, those receipts were real.
Those receipts were painful depending on who they were coming from, too.
Yeah, exactly. You accidentally really hit some certain people, you liable to lose some teeth.
Your life was in danger at that point. Ole Anderson, Harley Race, Haku,
Yeah. Bruiser Brody.
Okay. There were two guys that Andre was afraid of, and I just said both of them.
Yeah.
Harley Race and Haku.
Just Harley was just mean. Harley was mean. He's one of those guys that he was a character and he lived that character. That was him, sort of like Ric Flair. If you would have met Ric Flair on the street 20 years ago, he would have been the exact same person you've seen on television. That was him. That's who he was.
Yeah. Sarge is talking about Rick Steiner when he beat the crap out of somebody. That would have been both Steiners. Both Steiners were known for that, and they were both known for hazing guys backstage, too. If the Steiners didn't like you, they made life a living hell for you.
Oh, yeah. I also heard the same thing about the Road Warriors. Another team that, hey, they would throw you around the ring like you were a rag doll, but they'd never hurt you. They could. They knew they could, but they wouldn't. Whereas you hear stories about other big guys like the Ultimate Warrior who actually did hurt people. It's just, and that goes back to, people that respect the business and people that's just there for paycheck.
Yeah. JBL is another one that
Yeah.
if JBL didn't like you, you were in trouble. Ask the Blue Meanie about that. Blue Meanie did something and pissed JBL off, and he just laid into him in a match and had him all kinds of bloody.
Yep. So
Yeah, getting back to the in character thing, Sarge says Flair was always in character because he really was that character. I think
yeah,
the
exactly.
the guy who went the most overboard with being in character though has to be Nikita Koloff.
Yeah, because he kept that accent even when
The,
he was with the boys.
yeah, the only time he dropped that accent was when he was at home with his family. As soon as he would walk out his door, if he answered the telephone, he was in character. He went so far as to learn to speak fluent Russian and have a voice coach teach him how to do a proper Russian accent before he would open his mouth on television.
Mhm. And to hear him now, you never would know.
Mm-hmm.
But I like Nikita. I thought Nikita had a lot more potential and should have got a bigger push. I would have loved to have seen him win the world title.
Yeah, even if only for 5-6 months, it would have been interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah.
He had one of the wickedest clotheslines ever in the business. And
Oh,
he's
yeah,
right up there with
absolutely.
Stan Hansen.
Yeah. I don't know. When it comes to clotheslines, some people do clotheslines a whole lot better than others. A Road Warriors clothesline, like a clothesline from Animal, that looked like it would just take your freaking head off.
Mm-hmm.
Stan Hansen's clothesline, you mentioned that. Who was Black Bart? Remember him?
Yeah.
He had a wicked clothesline. There was everybody talks about the
JBL
clothesline
had,
from hell. Yeah.
which he learned from Hansen. Stan Hansen's
Yep.
the one that taught him how to throw a clothesline.
Yeah. It just makes you wonder, man. How much they actually put into learning how to do that one move, that one maneuver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
and
Midnight After's talking about Billy Gunn. Yeah, Billy Gunn Billy Gunn telling the story about Bart Gunn. Yeah, Bart Gunn was a legitimate badass. When they did the Brawl for All, if you remember that, that was a legitimate shoot fight tournament that Vince McMahon put on with the wrestlers to see who was the baddest guy. And they were setting it up to where Steve Williams would win. Bart Gunn just beat the holy hell out of Steve Williams and won the whole thing. And
yep.
it killed his career. Vince was furious that he won.
Well, he proved the point, I guess. What's the difference between a lariat and a clothesline?
They're the same move.
Exactly.
Depends on what part of the country you're from.
Exactly. I heard Jim Ross one time talk about a Steiner line.
Yeah.
During a match.
That's what the Steiners called it. They called it the Steiner line.
The Steiner line. And
Yeah.
they said, it's a Steiner line. If you're from Michigan, if it's anywhere else other than Texas, it's a clothesline. If you're from Texas, it's a lariat.
If you're from Russia, it's a Russian sickle.
Sickle. Yep, exactly. Steiners was a good tag team. Steiners was one of those tag teams that I wish they hadn't have broke up. Because could you imagine some of the great matches that they could have had later on after the whole NWA thing? Steiner Brothers versus DX and WC or WWE. Those would have been some pretty cool matches, Bubba. But
Steiner's versus the Smoking Guns would have been good.
yeah. But have you seen Scott Steiner lately?
Yeah, he's still a big jacked guy.
Yeah, but now he's got that gut going.
I still want to mess with him.
No. I will say this. He owns a Shoney's restaurant in Kennesaw, Georgia. I've eaten there. And it was the only Shoney's I have ever seen that served alcohol. It actually has a bar in the Shoney's. And I was like, that is pretty cool.
Rick sells real estate and insurance and is a member of the school board where he lives.
Yep. So, who do you think was better, Rick or Scott?
I think Scott was more athletic. I don't see Rick doing moves like the Frankensteiner.
I don't either, but I think Rick was better on the mat. I think that with grappling, Rick was a better wrestler.
Well, they were both All-American amateur wrestlers at Michigan.
Well, I know.
You know?
I know. But if you watch them, and grant you, professional wrestling is professional wrestling. It's not amateur at all, and it's completely different from Greco-Roman wrestling. There's no comparison there. But I think that I liked Rick better than I did Scott, as far as wrestling goes. Even a Rick Steiner belly to belly or belly to back looked just brutal. The way he would pull that off.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about the Steiner brothers.
Yeah. Big E reminds me a lot of Rick Steiner.
Yeah, he does. Honestly, now that I think about it, you mentioned that.
He's the same size and has the same kind of moveset.
Yep. And that's what I miss. That's why I like the guys like the Road Warriors and the Steiner brothers, Demolition, even Harlem Heat. They would throw people around the ring like crazy.
Oh my God! Could you imagine Brian Cage and Big E in the tag team? You would have the second coming of the Steiners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian Cage is very much like Scott, and then Big E is like Rick. I mean,
I don't know, man. I miss seeing classic matches with lots of different varieties of suplexes and belly to back suplexes and just atomic drops and back drops and
Dude, I'm telling you, man, you gotta watch New Japan. Everything that you say you miss, they are doing in Japan.
But I don't want it to be in Japan. I want it to be in America.
Well, there are Americans over there doing it, along with the Japanese and the Mexicans and the British and the New Zealanders and the Australians. I mean, the New Japan is a melting pot of wrestling styles from around the world.
It is. If I had cable television, I would find it and watch it. Unfortunately, everything I do, because I have no cable, I have no internet, everything I do, I'm doing on a cell phone, dude. Everything.
There's ways you can watch using a cell phone.
So, I live in this weird little bubble where I can't get cable and I can't get internet. And everybody on every street around me has this stuff. And I'm like, why can't I have that? I'm just living in this one little area that nobody has ever decided that needed cable internet. So
Sarge brings up the Malkies. Oh man, we've talked about them a lot on this show.
yes, we have. The monkeys are heroes. Okay, the monkeys are heroes. They are the absolute quintessential heroes of professional wrestling.
Yeah, they were so white. My brother used to call them the Milkies. Honestly, God, he did.
It was, that one match that they won. That one match that they won on television meant more to me than a lot of other matches that I thought was great because it's the way it happened. It was just so funny.
Yeah. Oh, Kingpin right now, New Japan's not on cable. It's New Japan Pro Wrestling, like MKJO just said. But they just redid a deal where they're going to be on Access TV again. So if you have Access TV, AXS on your cable system, you'll be able to watch it over there. Or you can go to njpwworld.com and you can which is what I have to do, and subscribe to their monthly service, which is little under $10. It's 999 yen, and so that's about $9.90 a month, somewhere in that realm once it's converted to dollars.
C4 Defense says Steven Regal was underrated. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that
now which Steven Regal are we talking about? Are we talking about Steven Regal who became William Regal, or are we talking about Mr. Electricity Steven Regal from the AWA? Two different guys.
I'm thinking he's talking about Steven Regal, that became William Regal.
I hope so.
Yeah.
the other guy was he was the lesser of a tag team with Jimmy Garvin at one point, if you remember.
I think that Steve Regal is probably the number one wrestler to come out of England from the 80s and 90s, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's a tough bastard too.
People talk about Chris Adams. People talk about Davey Boy Smith. What's the other guy?
Dynamite Kid.
Dynamite Kid. I think Regal was better than any of them. I think that I would love to have seen them establish a tag team with Regal and oh God, what's that Irish dude's name?
Finlay.
Finlay. Yes, exactly. That would have been a hell of a tag team because Finlay was good. Finlay was really good.
Finlay.
Yep.
Whose son wrestles for Ring of Honor and New Japan.
I think that would have been a freaking fantastic heel tag team.
Yeah. Finlay was a third generation wrestler too. His son's fourth generation. That's the family business right there. If anybody can call wrestling the family business, it's the Finleys.
Yep. I think that Finlay was underrated.
Yep. Well, if you're a former United States and World Television Champion, can you be considered to be underrated?
Yes. Yes, you can. Because there are guys out there, you look at a guy like Arn Anderson and you say he was underrated. Well, Arn Anderson was not underrated.
Arn Anderson wasn't underrated because Arn didn't want the world title. He wanted the world television title.
Arn was right where Arn wanted to be and where Arn needed to be. He made more money than most people that had the world belt on their waist doing just a television thing and world and tag team championship. Um, Arn was just amazing. Uh, who is the most underrated old school wrestler? The most underrated old school wrestler? One name that comes to mind was one I mentioned earlier. Manny Fernandez. Manny was very underrated, and he was very good. He had the talent, he had the ability, he had it all. He just never got the push up until he tag teamed up with Rick Rude. But
Sarge says Brad Armstrong for that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Brad Armstrong was good. Kendall Williams is another one. You hear about Barry, but you never hear very much about Kendall. And Kendall was pretty good in the damn ring. I mean, you could come up with a whole list of guys that with the right push in the right area could have made it big. Lord. Tim Horner was another one. You never got the push.
Sarge says Kendall looked like a human Q-tip. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
No, he's not. He's really not wrong about that. But he was a good wrestler. Sam Houston was another one. No, I think Sam Houston was a whole lot better than Terry Taylor, or the Red Rooster, if you will.
I think Terry Taylor gets a bad rap because of the Red Rooster thing, and that was totally a Vince deal right there.
Yeah, that was a Vince. Yeah, we all know that. And he had a reputation. That I don't know how many interviews you've listened to the guys talking about Terry Taylor, but very few of them have anything positive to say about Terry.
Yeah, the thing that hurt Sam Houston and some of the smaller guys that are on that time was the fact that they did away with the light heavyweight championship, and they were there between the light heavyweight title and the cruiserweight title. And they didn't have that division to build themselves up like what Jericho and Benoit and Guerrero and Rey Mysterio did. Those guys made a name for themselves in the cruiserweight division before they ever moved on to become heavyweight champions.
Yeah, but you have to also keep in mind, Sam Houston had a long-standing feud with Black Bart, and they would go back and forth in these matches. Black Bart was not a small dude.
No, but at that point, Black Bart wasn't a top-tier draw anymore either.
Well, this is true. Flair always said that if he needed a good match on TV, he wrestled George South.
Yeah,
George South.
George South is what they would refer to back then as being a good hand. If you needed to have a good match with somebody that would make it look good, George South was the guy you wanted in the ring with you.
And have you ever noticed, if you've ever watched any of George South's old matches, very few of them were squash matches. They would actually let him go back and forth with them. Mm-hmm. Of course, you knew who was going to win, but they wouldn't just go in and squash George South. He would go in, it'd be a decent match. And, George would get his moves in, do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, take the finish. George was good at what he did. He was very good at enhancing talent. Not a lot of them can say that. Buddy Parker's another one that comes to mind that would do that. He would get into the ring, and they wouldn't just squash him for the most part. They'd let him get a few shots in here and there. Several others that I can name.
A lot of Arn Anderson will tell you one of the best hands he ever wrestled was Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor was it the way Arn puts it, a jobber who got the push to titles.
Pistol Pez Watley. Yeah. Pez was good. Pez was really good, and he could draw heat. When he became Shasta Watley, he drew a lot of heat very quickly. Now, we can go on forever talking about these guys. You mentioned.
You want to talk about a jobber that could draw heat? Barry Horowitz.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
Remember when he had the small, short base run against Jesse Ventura and beat him?
Yep.
Oh.
Who was the guy? Remember when Goldberg was on that long 173-0 winning streak? There was this one guy that he wrestled, I know, a half dozen times or more. And he would always come out in a karate gi. And this guy actually gave Goldberg a run for money and came closer to beating Goldberg than anybody I can remember. And I think it's just because, he was out there with him so much. And they had some decent matches. And it wasn't just all Goldberg running through him either.
You talking about the black dude that had like the leopard spot on the gi?
No. This is a white guy. This is a big white guy.
Okay, yeah. There was the black dude that came out in the karate gi too around that same time.
Yeah.
Ernie somebody or other or something. Ernest something.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
He wasn't bad either. Ernest Miller?
Yeah.
Ernest Miller, yeah. Yep. He was actually a legitimate badass though. He was a world class karate guy. So but he had some good matches with Goldberg. I cannot remember this dude's name to save my life. I'll have to look it up.
Well, where's Teresa from last week when we couldn't remember somebody's name? She was out there. Boom. Remember that?
Teresa is in Florida.
No, I mean, where's she at right now when we need her?
Well,
I can't think of what you're talking about either.
She's in Florida. That's all I can tell you. But I cannot remember this dude's name to save my life. It'll come to me about 3:00 in the morning. The most I remember on Saturday nights was the commercial about Geritol. Okay. Let's see. Remember the guy that came out? What the Glacier was his name? Remember Glacier?
Yeah, he was a former American Gladiator.
Yeah,
and he's still wrestling.
God, that was a horrible gimmick. That was absolutely terrible. And that's when Kane.
That was just his American Gladiators character. That's all they did. They took him off American Gladiators and put him in a wrestling ring.
Yeah. And remember who was his rival? Mortis. And you remember who Mortis was, right? Canyon.
Yeah.
So, Chris, Chris Canyon. Exactly. Wow. Talk about memories, man.
Good Lord, Chris Canyon and Brian Adams when they became Chronic.
Yeah.
Yeah, both those guys aren't around no more.
Nope.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero knockoff. Yeah, that's exactly what he was. Midnight.
Pretty much. And damn, man. Talk about memories coming back to you. Some of these old matches. He was pretty good. I don't think he should have gotten nearly the push that he got. And I'm talking about Glacier here. But he wasn't bad. It was a horrible gimmick. They should have just scrapped that crap from the beginning. But how many guys do you see come into wrestling, even back then, using the whole karate thing that ever really made it over?
Steamboat?
Steamboat, Muda. But with Muda, it made sense because with those three, with Kabuki and Muda, and Ming, it makes sense because of where they're from. Steamboat was a little more iffy, but he managed it.
Well, no, being from Hawaii had a large, and still does have a large Japanese community. So true. They got karate schools over in Hawaii like you wouldn't believe in some places over there.
So you just but for the most part, you see a good karate guy in professional wrestling. It's just another one, and that's how it normally ends up. Another one.
There's one over in New Japan right now, but he is Japanese, so it makes sense.
What was the Super Ninja or whatever he was in the old USWA?
Oh, good Lord! There was a lot of guys that used a ninja gimmick that weren't Japanese.
Yeah.
Or any kind of Asian.
Yep, exactly. Well, Blackman. The difference between Blackman is though, Blackman was legitimate.
Yeah. Blackman, Ken Shamrock. I mean, these were guys that would legitimately kick your ass.
Tank Abbott.
Yeah, these were all MMA guys.
Yeah, not just karate guys. These guys were the guys that literally got in the octagon and bled real blood from taking a real pounding.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Well, whose blood do they make you bleed?
Their own.
No, come on, it's dodgeball. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
I've never seen that movie.
You've never seen? Oh my God, you need to see that movie.
Never seen that movie.
Yeah, Ben Stiller looks at. I forget who it is. Makes Ben Stiller bust his lip open or something. He's like, nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Well, whose blood do they make you bleed?
Yeah. Okay, folks. We've been on here a little over an hour now. I think we're going to call it done for the night. Rich, I thank you, sir, for being here. Squib, I thank you for jumping in for a little while. Rich, you got anything to plug?
Yeah, just watch This Week Unloaded tomorrow night on the Unloaded Media channel. That will be at around 8:30 Eastern.
Hold on. We got a late arrival here. Welcome back, Squib.
I can't even find the mute button.
Well.
I thought since I was in earlier, I'd just weasel in now at the end.
Well, we appreciate you, sir. Thank you, sir, for showing up tonight and being part of the show. Kingpin, thank you for being out there all you folks out there, Sarge, I sent you a link. I wish you'd have jumped in. It's been great to have you on. I hadn't talked to you in a while.
Oh God! Remember a couple weeks ago when we were talking about old people wrestling? Still, Ken
Yeah.
Shamrock is in his 60s and he's still wrestling. By the way, and what reminded me of that is Midnight was just talking about how he was listening to Ken Shamrock on Stone Cold's podcast. He says probably the best interview he ever heard. So,
Well, if you remember how old Ricky Morton is, and he's still going.
yeah. Well, have you seen Ken Shamrock? This guy still looks like he could go out there and kick somebody's ass in the street if he had to.
Well, I'm sure he could.
He is still ripped, and he unlike Scotty Steiner, he doesn't have a belly on him.
And there, I mean, look at Terry Funk. He's got to be what, 75, 76, and still out in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, Ken Shamrock was just wrestling for Impact. He's still under contract, as far as I know.
I would say Terry Funk's probably going to die in a wrestling ring, and it won't be an accident. It'll just be he's going to die at 100.
Have a heart attack.
Yeah, 112 years old, die of a heart attack in a wrestling ring.
It's happened.
So, but God bless him. He's doing what he loves. Anyway, we're going to call it done for the night, folks. Rich, I do appreciate you. Squib, you got anything you want to plug while we're here?
I just want to plug everybody in the live chat who wasn't able to jump into the show, despite the fact that Outlaw Hatfield was sending out links. Sometimes it isn't as easy to jump in as somebody who's never been in a live show might think. So your participation in the live chat, I think, as somebody who's been on a panel, I can tell you it's helpful. And it's the first time I've listened to this show. It's the first time I've had something where my schedule's been conducive to being able to listen to the show, and being able to jump in was also kind of nice. So I appreciate that, Ellis. And just everybody out there, just understand that, platforms are out there for us to put videos out or do live shows. We're all contributing, whether it's entertainment or education or just all of us hanging out and networking. So you can be a part of it in whatever way you want. It's up to you how you do it. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, by the way, problem. I saw yours and Moo's conversation out there. Trust me, I'm no robot.
It was I kind of equated you to like a cybernetic organism. You can't be reasoned with, you can't be bargained with, you don't feel pity or remorse, and you will not stop ever. But some of the things we were saying were kind of like, if you don't live here, you wouldn't get a damn word we said. And I've been in conversations like that, but I've also, as much as I found those conversations kind of foreign, I've also kind of found them a little bit educational. Midnight Range CM can tell you, Lancaster, Pennsylvania is pronounced Lancaster, right? Mm-hmm. I learned that from listening to him. So we can learn a lot from each other about the culture of the areas that we live in, why we call what we call, why we say this or that, or just how it is, how to act like a local. I think shows like this and all the shows that all of us do, all those gun channels people, I'll just say it, gun channels people do. It's more than just guns and Second Amendment. It's about sharing a lot with each other. You can look at it from a negative standpoint, and sometimes the shows are kind of negative, but the rest of the time it's just us kind of just sharing with each other. It's not I'm better than you or you're better than me or any of that. It's, I don't know all of the wrestlers you guys talked about tonight, but I know some of them, and I haven't seen all the things you guys have seen, but I've seen some of it. So I was able to follow along. And I appreciate the fact that you just kept flow going to the show, and you interact with the audience, and I think it's a good example of how these shows can go.
Well, I made it abundantly clear when I first started streaming that I wanted to do something a bit different. I didn't want a platform stuck on just two-way. I wanted to get other thoughts, other ideas out there. other ways of thinking. And yeah, man, I'm as pro 2A as anybody you'll ever meet in your life. In fact, I'm probably more pro 2A than most people you'll ever meet in your life. If you want to get right down to it, I am totally and completely against any kind of laws against the Second Amendment, period, or any kind of infringements. That includes a 4473 form. I think that that's an infringement on your right. People look at me like I'm an idiot when I say, "Hey, you don't want criminals getting guns? Don't let them out of jail." Because as soon as you let them out of jail, apparently they have been rehabilitated. The state thinks so anyway. And if they've been rehabilitated, then they deserve their rights back. I'm sorry, that's going to piss people off. I don't care. That's just the way I see it. You know.
But the fact that you do a show like this says that pro 2A people are regular people like everybody else. If you do cooking on your pro Second Amendment channel, or you do gardening, or you do alcohol reviews, or you do travel reviews, or you do movie reviews, or or wrestling, right? It doesn't matter. We're regular people like everybody. We have so much in common with the average non-2A person. If you do vaping flavor reviews, okay, it doesn't matter. We're just like everybody else. We just have an appreciation for the right to keep and bear arms. So I think it's good that you show that we're normal. Just doing something about wrestling. How many people into wrestling that have never even given guns a second thought, or the fact that they have the right to own something that's a deterrent to tyrannical government overreach and blah blah blah, right?
Well, yeah, here's the thing on that: wrestling and guns. There actually is a crossover. If you look at Undertaker, huge gun guy. Braun Strowman, huge gun guy. Brock Lesnar, huge into hunting. Stone Cold Steve Austin, huge into hunting. Shawn Michaels, huge into hunting. Shawn Michaels used to have a hunting show. He might still have it on the Outdoor Network.
Now, see, that sort of thing is a good bridge, and I don't think the average public may know that. But the whole thing is that we're regular people like everybody else. So doing a wrestling show, even if you don't even mention guns in every single show, or you mention a little bit in every show, it's the whole point of we're no threat to anybody, and we're just patriots, and we're law-abiding citizens. And oh, by the way, we also like, to bake or to go visit this tourist attraction or whatever it is. So I think it's good that you kind of go outside of the box, and it's not new gun review 2A, new gun review 2A. So that's my take on it.
Oh, I forgot Goldberg too. Goldberg's a gun guy too, as well as Lars.
Now, what do you think, Rich, about mentioning that maybe more frequently at the beginning or end of shows like this? Or do you think that's too much?
We've talked about it on my show before. It might not have been an episode you were on, but we have talked about it before.
Ah, okay. Okay. Oh, that's good.
And the 2A has been mentioned on this show before on more than one occasion. It's not taboo by any means for us to discuss a 2A topic on this particular show. I just don't like to do it a whole lot because I don't want people who are just joining this chat to think, okay, well, they're just using this to push a 2A agenda. Well, that's not the case. This channel is about far more than my 2A agendas. And yes, I do have a 2A agenda, but it's not mentioned here.
But you're a regular person like everyone else. You're not what the media paints you to be. You're not what Hollywood paints you to be. You're not what the politicians paint you to be. You're just a guy who likes wrestling.
Yeah, pretty much. And if you
wait. Sorry. Let me say that correctly. You're a guy who likes wrestling.
if you listen to the Monday night shows or my old Wednesday night shows or Thursday, whenever that was, you will hear a lot of different
The shootout.
topics.
The shootout.
The shootout. You will hear a lot of different topics that we talk about during those shows.
Yeah.
It's not all about 2A. Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, real quick, Squid, go over on Instagram and go to the Undertaker's page over on Instagram about a year ago and look at the gun safe his wife got him for their anniversary. I think it was either their anniversary or his birthday. You will be drooling over this gun safe. It looks like an old West bank vault.
Nice. I don't IG, but I'm sure somebody on Discord can send me a picture of it. But yeah, I still, if I had lottery money, I might want to replicate that in my dream ranch. So, yeah.
But my interest is wide and varied. And my life is not wrapped up in all 2A matters. I try to avoid talking direct politics on any of my shows because that's just a powder keg waiting to explode. I have my opinions. You can state yours. I don't care. You can listen to my old broadcast, my old podcast from a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, however far back they go, and you will hear us discussing everything from ham radio to cooking. So my interests vary. With that being said, I will never, ever deny or stop pushing 2A in any format that I am on. Period. I don't talk about it on this show a whole lot. We have. Me and Rich just, talked about it a little here, a little there. Anybody that's watched any of my shows know that I'm probably one of the most pro-gun guys you'll ever meet. I do not believe in any restrictions on gun rights. Like I said, people holler all the time about criminals getting guns. If they're in jail, they can't get guns. If you let them out of jail, apparently they've been rehabilitated and deserve their rights back. That includes their Second Amendment. If you don't want them to have the guns, keep them locked up until you figure they have been rehabilitated. And when you let them out, give them their rights back. It's that simple. It makes me sound like a monster. I understand that. I don't care. I really don't care.
It used to be when you went to prison in the West, you got out and they gave you your revolver back as you're walking out the door.
Exactly. And that's the way it should be. People talk about, well, aren't you afraid that a criminal will just take? Well, no, because once he's out of jail, he's no longer a criminal. He's rehabilitated. Supposedly.
Supposedly. It don't work that way.
And, if he goes and breaks another law, lock him up for longer.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with your point of view on that. I see the American value system in that. You have the opportunity to make yourself. If you screw up, you have the opportunity to pick yourself up and make yourself something better and learn from your failures. That's the American way, what you're saying. Okay, the other way is, oh no, you're always going to be. What about the story about the guy who was the getaway car guy for the bank robbery? And when the bank robbery went sour, he drove away, was never caught, and decided to go on a straight and narrow and got married, had 4 kids, got a college degree, was a successful business person, and never so much as got a parking ticket for 30 years, and then suddenly was somehow discovered as the getaway driver and went to jail for 1 day. That's the American story. So if you think that someone, granted, a lot of people do return to crime, so I get why you might get pushback, Hatfield, I get why you might get, but the chances or the fact is, if you want to be a real American, the American way is it's up to you to make or break yourself. So I get where you're coming from.
Exactly. Let people have that chance. We cannot say that we are pro-gun if we're saying we're pro-gun, but this person can't have a gun, or this person can't have this type of gun. That's not being pro-2A. That's being, I want what I want, but you can't have this because you did this 20 years ago.
Sound like hypocrisy to you?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
I got taxpayer funded security 24/7 for the rest of my life, but you can't have fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So people ask me where I think the law should be or the line should be drawn when it comes to gun rights, and my answer is always the exact same. How deep are your pockets? How much can you afford for a gun? If you want to buy a fully loaded F-18 Hornet, by God, if you got the money to buy it, buy it.
If you do and you want to throw something under the wings, I'm certified to install it.
So, and then that's just the way I see it. That's just the way I see it. If you want to spend $48 million on a fighter jet with a full complement of missiles and bombs, that's your right. Congratulations, you're an American. So that's, just the way I see it. Am I nuts? Probably.
Well, if you look at the wording, it says arms. It doesn't say small arms.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to be able to run out tomorrow and buy myself a nice M1 Abrams. I would never have a problem finding a parking spot.
You can. You just got to pay the tax stamp if you want the cannon to work.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't have the pockets aren't deep enough for me to have that. So therefore, I don't have that. Think about how the gun prices. Think about how gun prices would drop so dramatically if it was like that.
I just thought of something crazy with your wanting the Abrams. It's more legal to own the highly destructive cannon than it is to have the 50 BMG mounted on the commander's cupola. Think about that.
Yep.
Tell me that with that in mind, the gun laws in this country aren't insane.
Yeah. Like I said before, I honestly think there should be one gun law in this country, and that law should state simply this: at the age of your 18th birthday, as an American citizen, the United States government ought to give you a rifle.
Interesting concept, but I think that might go along with selective service. If you are required to register for selective service, you might get a CMP eligible rifle, long gun, in order to be able to prepare for that selective service, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
Yeah, I still say if women want equal rights, they should have to sign up for the selective service too.
Well, see,
wait, they're not on it yet?
No.
Damn, I'm out of date.
Yeah. See, that's one place equality has never quite made it yet, man.
Well, hell, they dumbed down basic training for them. They might as well put them on selective service too while they're at it.
Look, I'll sound like a sexist, but I'm going to tell you this. I would not purposely put them in harm's way.
I didn't say combat. I mean, you can always put them in a secondary unit.
If it came our way, the WMs I served with, I would not hesitate to jump in a fighting hole with them because I know they could fight just as hard as me. The reasons I have for not purposely putting them in harm's way might sound sexist as someone who's ignorant of military tactics and of global politics. But if you're a little bit more well-versed, you might pull your head out of your ass and you might see where I'm coming from. That's not to say women can't fight. They can fight. They can fight. But there are obvious, apparent reasons based on the enemies we have across the globe as to why. And there are also obvious physiological reasons why you don't put them in prolonged combat together. And if you want to debate me on that, maybe that should be the first episode of whatever live show I end up doing. But short of that, no, American women, they can put up a good fight too. And I would not hesitate to share a fighting hole with another WM. Or I should say another Marine, female, male, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
There are certain enemies that we are currently fighting off and on right now who tend to view captured women on the battlefield as sex slaves.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, but that's part of the reason. That is part of the reason. But understand this. When it's expected that an area is safe and suddenly it doesn't become safe, your training kicks in. I see no reason why the training women receive shouldn't be the same as men. I understand some of the physiological things. Running, they can run as good as or better than men. But lifting, physical, upper body strength, they don't have it. And when I was in, well, Rich, I'm sure when you were in too, they had a different standard when it came to upper body strength type, load bearing or exercises. Otherwise, though, if you think they can't be tenacious or you don't think they can't be, strong, you underestimate the American fighting woman. But regardless, I think that's something where the other side needs to be a little bit more open-minded when they hear dinosaurs like me explain those reasons, because what Rich is saying is true, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants that, especially not the enemy. They may think they want it, but when they find out what we do to them for doing that to our people, they won't want it.
Yeah, well, folks, we've went down a rabbit hole tonight. Wrestling chat ended about 30 minutes ago, so now we're completely on something else. But I tell you what we can do, gentlemen. I will have you two back on Monday night to continue this conversation, if you wouldn't mind. And if anybody else would like to join in on this, send me a shout out. My email is really simple, ellishatfield@gmail.com or theoutlawhatfield@gmail.com. Either want to get a hold of me, I'd be happy to send you a link. And we'll get into this. It'll be a great little conversation for a Monday night chat. As for now, I am calling it done, ladies and gentlemen. Rich, Squib, I love you both. God bless you. God bless everybody out there. I'm calling it a night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.